Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sean Huddy. I'm with CERIAS, and I'm going to introduce our speaker today. It's Dr. Stephen Flowerday. He is a professor in the School of Computer and Cyber Sciences at Augusta University in Georgia. His research focuses are cybersecurity management, cybercrime, behavioral information security, and human-centric cybersecurity at the intersection of technology, processes, and people. Dr. Flowerday's talk today is titled The Hidden Laundromat at Play, How Illicit Value Moves Through Online Games. And I will hand it over to Dr. Flowerday.
Hello? Okay. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Well, I'm excited to be here today. As you hear, my speech today is about money laundering, but through the context of online games. Specifically, we're going to look at how the launderers, the criminals, move for frictionless or lower friction environments on how to improve their returns. As regulation improves in other disciplines, so they keep moving, and they're a bit ahead of the game. In the old days, money laundering, you would literally have cash, but you could only carry so much cash. It's a heavy, they work on $20 bills. If we take 500,000, that's about all a person can carry in a bag. If they can manage 2 bags, they can take $1 million. That's a single person running with 2 bags. Versus if we do it electronically, we can take far more. Now we'll look at how they progressed, how the mob has got involved, and how the various criminals have evaded the various controls. And I'm going to spend a bit of time on the controls that we as security people have designed and show you some of the flaws in those controls and how we should improve the design to stop the breach, well, reduce the breach. I'd like to thank Purdue for inviting me here. I look for one with a clear sky because today's a bit inclement out there. I don't know exactly what's going to happen tonight. It feels like I'm back in London, if you know what I mean, from a grey sky point of view. And I'd like to thank Dr. Jean Spafford for inviting me and all those who have made it possible. Now I'm going to also extend a thanks in their absentia to the 3 PhD students. Well, one's graduated, he's now postdoc at Yale, James. One is graduating next year, Emil. And one's in his first year, Dimitri. He's with me in Atlanta, well, in Georgia, I should say. He lives in Atlanta, I'm in Augusta. And Emil's at University of Tulsa in Oklahoma. And as I said, James graduated. And they've all worked on this area. They're all into the online gaming, the hacking, how it occurs from a criminal point of view, and how cybercrime is abusing it, and in a way, destroying the game from a social point of view. So why this matters? The scale and urgency of how the global cybercrime industry is expanded has enabled money laundering, specifically 2 to 5% of the world's GDP, which is trillions of dollars. This is estimated by the United Nations Organization for Drugs and Crime, or I can't remember what the C stands for. I think that's correct. And in games alone, we this year expect to spend $189 billion on the online games, excluding gambling. I've got a figure with gambling where they gamble for skins and the other things a bit later, and it's higher. Okay, so that's just purely using the traditional skins, coins, items that you would normally spend your money on, winnings, that type of thing. So how does it happen? I'm going to just summarize up front so we know. It's microtransactions, peer-to-peer items off-platform cash out. So from a legal point of view, we only get involved when the money exits the system. And that's where it becomes a bit difficult to trace it. And I'll go through a model which has been existing in the money laundering field for some time to show how they get the illicit funds through the system. Stolen cards, a whole lot of illegal ways of putting, and this isn't just credit cards, this is gift cards, this is points at the Marriott Hotel where I'm staying, this is you buy the prepaid credit cards at Walmart, anything, you can push the money through the system and it comes out clean, okay? From a regulation point of view, it's pretty much a closed loop as soon as the money enters the system until it exits. At the moment, there isn't much to clarify how you should trace it. So there's a historical parallel to casinos, online gambling, where this took place in a tremendous way until they clamped down the whole lot of controls. Now let's follow that money laundering trail. It existed through cash, then it went through banks until the banks, specifically around 9/11, forced a lot of KYC, know your customer. Then it continued through credit cards until they enforced it. Then it continued through your peer-to-peer networks like eBay or Amazon Marketplace specifically, or even Airbnb has some 6,000, they're trying to clean it up. Fictitious properties being rented out all the time. You register property, you rent it out to yourself and so on. Or ghost riders in Uber and things like that, which just keep going until they clamp down. Crypto came on board and that had a lot of money going through it as well, and still does, but they are also forced to now spend more time on KYC. In Europe at the moment, there's a crypto law, any transaction above €1,000, so roughly $1,100, needs to be recorded, versus FinCEN, the normal banking law, says $10,000 in the US. So it's a lot higher at the moment. There isn't a specific crypto limit yet, except for the 10,000 one, okay? But the key is microtransactions which occur in real time almost between either an individual with multiple accounts or collusion, and we'll spend some time on that, okay? And we will look at how if we don't keep the gaming system, now we designed those gaming systems, if we don't keep that gaming system secure, it's going to be locked down to a point where they did with other industries. And there's a catch here. The gaming system, more so than anything else, has this culture of using avatars, being private. You can be in a group playing, or with your headphones on. You can be at home in your bedroom in your underwear playing with your avatar. It doesn't really matter. You're playing the game, okay? And you've got this anonymity where you want to stay private at all the time while you play the game using avatars. And you dress up, sell your skins, trade, whatever, win. You know the game, okay? So we don't want to change that if possible. We want to honor the honest gamers and cause friction for the money launderers using the same system to exploit that system. So money laundering is called a wicked problem. James discussed this when he was a PhD student with me some years ago. It's a wicked problem. There's various wicked problems which are complex problems society grapples with. Poverty is one of them. Climate change is another. Money laundering is another. It's not as simple as to just stop it. Okay, it's been around for a long time. It will continue. Money laundering involves drug money, human and arms trafficking, sanctions. As we put sanctions on countries, they find ways to get their money through the system, organized crime, terrorist funding, all of those things we are trying to stop, which are finding their way into the game, okay? So money laundering, if it is a 2 to 5% of the world's GDP, is trillions. But in the our ecosystem is literally billions, it's not trillions. However, it's still a percentage which goes through and increasing. And so we need to also, as I said, respect these gamers. Now, I've got a lot of text. Just ignore some of the text. It's more for me than for you. You don't need to read it, okay? But I need it as a prompt sometimes, okay? And I don't know what happens to these slides down the road, but if they are put somewhere, you've got them. So, microtransactions, the digital goods, the skins, the cosmetics, the battle passes, all of these type of things. Various platforms, as you know, Robux is the money from Roblox and V-Bucks, coins, gems, we trade them. User-generated content, we sell it or trade it. And there's this massive noisy distribution center at the moment because there's illegal money exchanges which they say you shouldn't be cashing out your money, and some of the games say the money that you purchase or the items you purchase should be used in the game. However, there's lots of off-platform places to sell or to trade. They're not, if you Google them, they don't just pop up. You kind of need to know where they are. You're going to Reddit or some of the dark web items if you're selling it and trading it. And we'll spend a bit of time on that as well. So if you count the gambling specifically for skins, it goes up to from 189,000 to 269,000. So we can see the amount is increasing. And how do we identify the launderers? So the skins, as you know them, fancy gun, that lady standing there is actually a bought skin from, it's cut off over here, but it's Louis Vuitton outfit. You can buy them, they sell theirs online, just in case you want that name brand online for your avatar as well. And so we go on. Trading, I took this from an illegal platform online, just in case you didn't believe. Reddit helped me find the way. And how we can monetize and sell our activities online. There's a lot of it. So, as laundering migrates across the rails we've put in place, so it goes cash, banks, cards, e-commerce, gig platforms, to the marketeers, e-commerce type things, and now gaming. At each stage, we need to have the money takes the least resistance. At the moment, there's very little resistance in our ecosystem of online gaming, and we've designed it that way. What are we looking for? We're looking for disposable emails used on different platforms. We're looking for virtual numbers, device spoofing. Look, there's quite a push, I'm aware, to have KYC, know your customer in the marketplace, and maybe we should have it when you cash out. But there's all these off-platform companies which will take your money and discount it. They're not going to enforce KYC. At the same time, many of the gamers and the companies which provide the games do not want KYC. So there's a bit of a balancing act. How do we have KYC to just catch the money launderers and not the rest? Maybe you've got some ideas. We'll discuss them. Okay. There's a research angle here where we're looking for robust identity binding under privacy and usability constraints. Maybe we can do it behind the scenes, linking the person to their various accounts, to their SIM, to whatever we need to do. That alone should reduce and identify some of the activities. And this is where I want to go back to the traditional money laundering model or framework, and we can now look at the steps that are being used in our ecosystem. There's three, and this is even if it's just hardcore cash, they follow this model, okay? So we go through placement, layering, and integration, the PLR model. If anyone does anything to do with illicit funds, and they'll follow this model, and then we'll look at ways that it works in our game as well. And then we can look at how to tighten those security controls. Okay, so the money launderers follow this model, and they know the model, and they have a placement plan, in-game conversion, and then layering back into the business or whatever they are doing. So we look at the first one, placement. How do they put or place the money into the game? Well, I wanted to just spend a bit of time on carding. I think we know buying, putting cash in, but carding is becoming easier, especially as we don't track if you had to go along and buy 1,000 credit cards, prepaid credit cards, or a lot of minors in some of the games are having their parents' cards, if you want to call it, jacked en route and then used to purchase or to spend. So that's a predicated crime, but we're not going to really spend a lot of time on predicated crimes, but I'm just showing various illicit funds are entering the system, and some of it is just cash going into the gaming system, various vouchers and redeemed with wallets, cryptos going into the system and out of the system. There's a lot of account takeover. If you've got a high balance or expensive items in your account, you become a target. Credential stuffing, various other methods to get into your account, okay, and that's quite high. So we mustn't underestimate that. And then many games have a direct link or a bridge to crypto, where you can exit and your money through crypto and then back into the system, okay. So we're looking just at placement here. How does the money get into the system? Layering, how do we put it through the system that it confuses, let's say, anybody, and it looks like it's legitimate money. So there's various marketplaces. You shuffle it between accounts. I was talking about the avatars, the disposable emails, all those type of things. We roll it through the system, through the games, different games if needs be, different accounts. And there's frequent gifting. You can track that, where people give each other items or cash or whatever. Now, keep in mind that a single person can have multiple accounts if needs be. They can be gifting to each other, or they can be in collusion with each other. What do we look for? We look for trades which are worthless or low tier items traded extremely high prices. Okay, this isn't the first place this has occurred. eBay and others have been in a similar situation where, say, books have been declared rare books and then sold at extremely high prices. Fake watches have been sold as genuine watches to each other. Pot plants, it's quite easy to launder plants because you grow them in your nursery and you didn't have this large layout of cash, but you can sell them and bring in a lot of cash, if that makes sense. Meanwhile, there's sometimes no pot plant being delivered anyway, that type of thing. And so this is now the same method which has been used elsewhere, it's just moved on to this platform. So we should be able to identify how to do it. The only catch is we're trying to keep the good and honest gamer private so that they can still enjoy the game. So we're looking for collusion, we're looking for fake prices, we're looking for cheap items sold expensively, and so on. And of course, we've got the metaverse now, which people link to, sell, and sometimes NFTs and things like that also get high inflated prices through this. So integration is the money back into the system. How do we get that back into the system? That's the important part, because now it's washed money, we want it back. Laundromat principle, we put the dirty money in, we get the clean money out, less a few fees. So it's a legitimate ecosystem, but the funds need to look normal again when they come back out, okay? So even though some games say you can't sell these items once you put the money in, I think most or large games all have exits somewhere where you can sell those items and exit again with the money. Okay? There's cards, there's wallets, there's many other places. And I'm going to go through a few case studies to show how this has happened. I've taken them off public domain, so you can Google them all. There's one particular one I'm going to spend some time on is esports, because that's got a very large pool across the world. And as I said, crypto is become quite intertwined with most of these games as well. Now, the case studies, I'm going to show some examples. Counter-Strike container keys. Now, I know this is a few years ago. It's 2019. But the abuse occurred when the keys for the global fraud networks were used by criminals. They had to then liquidate all these keys and basically start again. There's an important thing here. Maybe from a market level intervention, it's more effective to just control peer account enforcement rather than all the monitoring of individual accounts and keys. We can make a policy decision, okay, a wider policy decision. But from a research point of view, we're trying to model the impact and then use it in future cases. So there's quite a lot of data on this, on the specific Counter-Strike example. V-Bucks. Well, we all know V-Bucks can be resold at a discounted rate, and the money can go back into your account. Okay, so with Fortnite, there's a lot of V-Bucks going around. You can buy it, sell it, do whatever you want on social media, eBay, the dark web, by however much you've got. There are sometimes some limits on some of the exchanges. Okay, so we've got to just monitor that. The lessons, though, is microtransactions can occur. You can have multiple microtransactions. And you can do them just below the limit the whole time that it doesn't get flagged. Okay. There are various ways to try and monitor this with BIN numbers, bank identification numbers if needs be, monitor the amount of money coming into that account if the criminal is using the same account. But again, we can learn from this and we can look for fraud signals and apply them to other cases. Roblox, well, there was a filing of over 300 accounts which were excluded based on a legal settlement. In fact, they exclude a lot of other accounts for other things, for abuse, racism, suspicious from transactions. There's a whole lot of things, but this specific one, they were doing very inefficient trades of fake and in-game items, just really flushing the money through the system. And they had high values for games which, I mean, these players didn't really play. They just had these accounts and they were obfuscated in the game, so then they were able to just push their money through to their known users in the collusion and their accounts so that they could return the money back into the system. Again, there are a lot of ways we can work on the false positives. There are various records which we can use, we can mine, and we can use models to apply again for other users. I mean, Roblox is huge. I mean, the volume of money which goes through there, I think, exceeds most smaller countries in the world. It's not a, I mean, I'm saying smaller, I'm saying, I'm not referring it to geographical smaller like the UK or something. I'm saying from a turnover point of view. But and then it's got a lot of links and bridges onto the metaverse and other type of ways as well to expand. And records, Dimitri is looking at this. We got a lot of Discord data from various channels. we've got a lot of Telegram data with various chats and stuff from various hackers and gamers sharing tips on how to do this. And he's trying to triangulate that against sales and things like that on these type of platforms. So because of the avatars and because of the privacy aspect, these people don't mind sharing advice sometimes with others, okay, and tips, because they just kill the email address again or move on if something happens. So hopefully we can find a way to identify this a little quicker with all the models by analyzing the other data from these breaches. Okay, I want to just spend a moment. I know many of us know this. It's not necessarily gaming, but it's the same principle is used, and this was sanctions evasion, where a country or individuals, I should say, bought a whole lot of Apple ID cards. You know, they all these stolen cards, and flushed a whole lot of money through the Apple system, which is supposed to be more secure and more on top of things than most. Okay, so I'm using Apple just because it's a big company. Next slide, I go to another big company to show how even the bigger companies with very large budgets struggle sometimes to lock this down in a realistic way. The lesson you hear is to look at the ecosystem on how the money will get put into the system, flashed through and exited less a few percent. How should we identify that? So this was done, but after the fact they managed to pick up the patterns. But we can use these models. If we're any good at stats, we can use these models to try and identify other patterns. Okay. Second Life, the virtual world. This isn't as big anymore, but it was really big at one stage. So they had their own currency, the Linden dollar, okay? And that was linked to accounts. And there was all type of fake businesses, fictitious people, everything else, all live in this virtual reality, this extra life, if you know what I mean, where they were all trading, fake commerce, everything else online. And this money, the money was able to go into banks pretty easily. At the end, they ended up saying any interest, because you could take out loans, you could do all this type of stuff through this system. They stopped any interest-bearing banks because they weren't regulated anyway. They enforced KYC, and it's kind of killed it in a way. But this placement occurred by buying the dollars, which wasn't difficult, layering it through the fake avatars, fake businesses, the gambling, everything else, integration back out into PayPal or your bank account as income. And this was a big thing in the day, getting a lot through. So how do we use this? We could learn from this massive case and apply it again to future games. FIFA. Now I mentioned this earlier, so I see a few smiles. This is used widely, obviously, the betting, the FIFA Ultimate coins, the teams across the world. This obviously is a big case. I mean, this was that case where with Electronic Arts, they forced the server to keep giving them winnings, and I think it was $16 million these three kids got from this, and then they were finally arrested or something. And I need to ask James, he's got all the details, but there's a lot of fraud and laundering taking place through FIFA's online games. And I think part of that is sport has become a very large entertainment place in our society. And of course, the gambling and betting is sometimes difficult in certain communities, but it's very easy online. If you know what I mean, you get the same kick out of it, and you can sell these coins or generate fake coins and sell them, whatever your game would be. Over-the-counter trading on grey markets is a big thing with the FIFA games. Okay. Eve. Now, Eve has a very complex player-run ecosystem. One aspect I thought is a plus here is that community policing occurs, and if you exploit it or you've noticed someone doing something, there is enough pressure from other players in the ecosystem to confiscate or penalize the abuser. Okay. Interstellar credits, ISK, is the name of their currency. Did I do that? Okay. So they can translate that into real money and continue trading or put it in and out of the system, if you know what I mean. And these brokers in the system, they steal accounts, there's a lot of phishing, there's a lot of other ways of them getting this. Now, this is, if I remember, it's an Icelandic company, but so from a jurisdiction point of view, it's a little more difficult than some others. Having said that, though, their community policing of one player to another, if they pick up, is something which we could probably move further along. And so the research angle at the bottom, these dealers, they deal in foreign exchange, there's various cybercrime revenues, but I think we can design graph and payment networks methods because it's all open there. We can actually get this data quite easily compared to some games and model it. Now, I said there's going to be another slide about a big company, Apple. Who owns this now? Microsoft, is that right? Yeah. Amazon. Oh, that's right, Amazon. I knew it was one of those West Coast companies here. Okay, so this was a Turkish case study, and as far as I'm aware, that's just because it was prosecuted, it was easy to pick up these abusers. But you know how you play your game, people reward you, they give you some bits, and you do really well, you get more bits, and you got a bigger streaming, more followers when you do your streaming, that type of thing. Well, all of a sudden there were some new players, and they went right up to the top of the leaderboard, and from Bit's point of view, and everyone's throwing them bits and donating bits to them. Meanwhile, they were just fake accounts or their collusion with their buddies, and the money launderers would then give them bits, and then they would keep a little section of those bits for themselves and give the money back to the money launderers. Okay, and so in Turkey they arrested these people and successfully prosecuted them for all these donations which they were getting and just taking a little percentage and giving the money back to the money launderers. Okay, so I'm trying to show that this happens quite widely. What do we do about it? Back to the PLR model. We've always got to have some theoretical base to make sure that we follow something soundly. There's recurring low play, high flow accounts through all of these cases. You know, there's low play, people just create accounts not to play but to funnel the money. Okay, and there's a lot of collusion, which I think is my next slide. I'm not sure where my collusion one is, between them as well. Either they're colluding with themselves with different avatars, or with whoever else entered with the purpose of laundering. So what do we need to do? We need to improve, just as cash, bank cards, e-commerce, crypto had their rails put in, and we need to maybe have some for games. But how do we do it without spoiling the gamer? So yeah. So I've got two topologies here. One, I'm going to show you a control related to payment pipe accounts, meaning low play, high sales volume, that type of thing. And two, collusion. So I'm going to see if your thoughts if these two solutions will work. These will just increase friction into the game for the launderers and hopefully not for the others. Okay? We'll use graph analytics, repetitive links. We'll follow the value on these certain accounts, that type of thing. So, what are we trying to do? A pipeline of accounts, spend versus engagement. How long are you on the game? How much money is going through your account? That type of thing. And we'll look for matching, trades, pricing analytics to see, oh, this guy bought this skin for next to nothing, but he sold it for a tremendous amount, $100,000. Okay? Yeah, I was also surprised when I got told some of these skins are becoming so expensive. I mean, anyway, that's another issue. So, what are we looking for? Trusted identity. We're trying to find the banks involved and see if we can get information from them. We're trying to do behavioral and graph analytics. Okay? Pick up all the patterns from those previous case studies. How do we use that data to help pick it up in real time if possible? And we're trying to do it case by case. Okay. So, behavioral signals. I'm trying to look at these type of things. So from a more technical point of view, most of you are more technical than me, you'd be very good at this. Okay? We're trying to look at content signals. If we can link to Discord channels or Telegram channels and pick up the chats as well and triangulate them to buy and sell on platforms, we should be able to identify something. So we're trying to look for same device identity across all the games. So if a person uses the same device or PC but has 100 identities, hopefully we can identify them and who they're trading with. Hopefully pick it up with themselves or with the same person. So we're trying to do this, and I want to focus on this middle part. We're trying to do privacy preserving analytics. We will destroy the gaming industry if we make everyone do away with their avatars and sit there with their cameras or do something like that. So we need to keep it, honor the gaming principles which are boomed. Specifically, and I've got it again a bit later, is Gen Z has a particular interest in this. It seems to cater to this demographic more than the others. Okay, so why should we destroy their entertainment? They're spending more time on gaming than watching TV or movies. So we need to try and play it into that as well. How do we honor what their requests and what they do for entertainment? They talk to their friends, they communicate, they play games, they have their networks, and so on. But at the same time, do some of these others to just cause, as I said, friction. We're unlikely to solve this wicked problem of money laundering, but we can cause friction, where on the back end we may know who's playing now if we apply some of this, but we're not going to expose it. But now there's a problem though. We've got to get the platforms on board. Now, just as certain banks have a reputation of allowing money laundering because they make money across the world, and certain countries are more lenient towards it than others, so it is with platforms. So we kind of need all the games to come on board. Now, is that realistic? I doubt it, unless there's regulation. Okay, so how do we all? I mean, we can't even enforce age. And I mean, everyone just says I'm 18, meanwhile they're 13 or whatever it would be. Okay, when they declare and continue playing. So how do we now enforce all the rest? So we have to increase the binding at the back of identities. Okay. So graph and behavior analytics. I think we can do a lot more here to spot the criminal, if that makes sense. We can use these data sets, we can match the various payment pipe accounts and the collusion value rings. We can find a way to identify and maybe just block those accounts. It will require more systems administration skills, if you know what I mean, someone at the end to do it all. I mean, and I'm going to come to that suggestion in a moment. But I think with AI, we can use large language models to do it. However, we need to train these things effectively, or else we're going to upset a lot of players. Okay? And so we need to expect, it's already occurring, a lot of deep fakes with KYC. You know, if we do voice analytics, there's going to be problems with cloning because people just clone it. We're going to have problems with detection models. And maybe we should have liveliness checks. I know that's done with some other forms of KYC, crypto being one of them nowadays, but I don't know if Gen Z is willing to give up. Now, having said that, I could be a 59-year-old guy playing games, but I like to prefer a young avatar doing my own thing online. So at the moment we survey and we say it's Gen Z doing all these games, but we're not really sure. But I'm hoping that we are. This is the only way we can really find out who's on the other end without exposing them, is binding it on the back, identifying accounts and players by their habits and their behavior. Okay, so I actually wanted to pause here for a second. From an AI point of view, do you think we can do this? We're getting there, I think. Not sure. But we need to start training these models on those data sets, because if you think of 3.6 billion players across the world, we can't do it manually. We need a tool which is going to scan these and help find the malicious accounts. And so we need to start this. We need to spend some time on this, because I don't know how else to identify this many malicious players, let me call it that. So a social cost. And we did this, the design issues. Now, I mean, we build systems, we think of, we get innovative and creative, and we think we're producing solutions, but sometimes there's unintended consequences. And that's where we need to now plug some of those gaps, if that makes sense. So there's no gaming system and ecosystem without our industry, computer science, IT, information systems, there's computer engineering. There's no ecosystem which will function without our skills, but it's our designs which are getting exploited. Okay? So from a cybersecurity point of view, we need to now think of some solutions, and this problem is not just going away. So either we think of the solution and we put on our design lens, or the money launderers will exploit our game until it's finished, if that makes sense. And then they will move on. That's why I started with showing how they've moved through other ecosystems. Okay? There's a lot of other things going on as well, but I'm not focusing on the other scams in the games. I'm sure you've come across them. Grooming, coercion, other types of chargeback issues to the developers where they lose millions per year on credit cards which have been abused. Other operational costs, reputational risks to the developers. So there are developer interests and our industry interests to try and solve some of these problems. So in closing, online games are part of the global money laundering system, but it's also part of our society, okay? And there's many of you who I'm sure play games and will continue playing games and will develop games and will develop various parts of the ecosystem. Okay? We must keep that PLR framework in mind. Placement, layering, and integration. We can keep the topologies in mind. There's two specific ones where I want our focused, and one is the collusion and one is the pipeline of money, buy low, sell high principle. Okay? We need to have a detection playbook to detect these type of breaches. So AML, anti-money laundering, we should be always saying AML. We're not on that side of the fence, we're on the side of the fence. So we're anti-money laundering. We need to put in controls, or if I put in italics, if we do not design for laundering risk now, attackers and regulators will design our systems for us, and I know that a lot of it will be doing away with the privacy. There'll be strong KYC, and it will crash many of the skins and avatars and things which people have developed, created, identified with, that type of thing. So in a way, even though this is a small part of society, it's a large part of Gen Z, and we need to find a way to secure it. Okay, so there's I got some backup slides if we got further questions on various other things, but that's my presentation. Thank you. Yeah. So now, I suppose it's this part. Any questions?
All right. Thank you so much for your talk. I found it really interesting. So just as a background, my name is Michael. I'm a graduate student in the political science department. So I don't have a background in cybersecurity, but I play a lot of video games.
Okay.
So one of the questions I have is there like specific type of games you look at? You know, you have multiplayer online battle arenas, you have live service games. Is there one like type of game that you're really worried about when it comes to money laundering, or is it more like case by case?
I think it's case by case, because I think most cases of any game where there's money involved has been exploited and is being exploited. So I am aware that, let's take Roblox, they have a young demographic. There's many below 18s or minors playing, and often they will use their parents' credit card in the system. They have problems, and Roblox is trying to clean it up, but it's so big now. It's so big that there's so many charges, and often because the charge goes to the parents, it's not always clear if the child made the purchase or not. But besides that, there are so many players that type of game is exploited. Now, something like Fortnite or Counter-Strike has all those big games have had problems. So I don't want to single out a game, to be quite honest. I think anything that can trade is having issues. Yeah. Good question, though. Please.
So I'm Zach. I'm a junior in computer science, and I also have played a fair share of games. And I'm kind of curious how a lot of your thoughts on how the pattern identification for, like, say, accounts that exist simply to funnel items or value, how one accounts for how variable those accounts can behave across game ecosystems and types. You could have some games where it's just a low playtime, but you have other games, like we can look to Team Fortress 2, where the bots are fairly sophisticated and capable of just farming in a server for infinite amounts of time. How do we delineate between a bot account
and a person? So we would need to look at the history of those accounts as well, and their wallets. If that bot has been going for a while and a person's been going for a while, and we can follow the trades, it's going to be quite difficult, I think, sometimes to tell the difference. If the bot appears and there's a whole lot of trading taking place, or the person vice versa, and all of a sudden there's irregular trades, buy low, sell high, vice versa, something irregular, that's easier to delineate and pick up. We will get a lot of false positives and things initially. that's why I said we need to train the AI models well in advance. They're not going to solve this. But if we don't start doing something sophisticated soon, I'm wondering about the unintended consequences that it will have on the gaming system. So those examples are valid. I mean, I read so many examples and questions that some people just ignore it. But but I think we're going to have to look at purchasing history of an account. It will stop people switching between accounts and creating new emails all the time as well, because that doesn't have a history. Does that help at all?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Hi. So I'm wondering about the other side from the game design point of view. What if you're going to design your game with the intention of having money laundering in it, and you're going to create an economy that way your honest players can pull money and your developers you take home process?
So I think there are games like that. Okay. So sometimes we need a whole policy over a game, like the one over the keys, which were distributed up front with Counter-Strike and those type of things. We need to have a policy. If we find a game which is maliciously designed to funnel money, which I think there are some, and I think if you Google them, some pop up. I think we need to have a policy decision. But at the moment, there's no one walking around with that stick saying naughty gamers or naughty platform. Not enough of it anyway, because the microtransactions occur 100 a day. We can do U-turns and check the transactions between, if you get the logs, you can see between players who is selling to this player and they sell it back and forth over 100 times a day and then the money's exited the system. So if we can identify any of those type of patterns within a game, then that whole game should be flagged. Does that help?
What about the potential social good?
Okay.
Where if you're laundering and you're getting let's say 50% conversion rate,
so
and that money's now
mules.
entering.
You mean where the money launderers are paying a whole bunch of mules to play, not that an odd for a cut? You mean just the player gets some money each time?
Well, let's say you're a company and you've designed this video game and you want to feed your developers.
Okay. But there's
and
lots
so
like that.
Now there's players coming in who are going to be bidding $100,000 on a stick, but some percentage of that cash transfer stays with your company. Is that not potentially a good thing, where you're pulling good money out of potentially an illegal drug transaction?
So that happens with traditional money laundering and banks. So some banks, you would turn a blind eye to money laundering because they got a cut and it kept the banks going. Okay, so we need to have some ethics in the game where we say, should we not check if that's dirty money? That goes back to the money laundering. Was that terrorist money? Was that drug money? Was that prostitution money? Should we be exploiting those people for surely there's some, so they say, a sea of ethics, creates the legislation at the end. So this society's more ethical on this side. They will create legislation to combat that if it crosses the line. So I don't know, at one stage, if this whole community and countries doesn't want to pass the legislation, they're quite happy with that, then that's where, crypto's moved to some countries because it's not regulated, and in other countries it's very regulated. So we may have that with gaming, but there is an ethical question there. Does that help at all? I would have thought you've all got to do some ethics in your degree as well. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so I was just thinking two ideas maybe. The first one can be easily circumvented by making multiple accounts, but we're just rate limiting accounts for trades if they have a lot of irregular trades. But again, you can make a lot of different accounts. But the second one, I was thinking, why has anyone like has any game company basically made like set like a predetermined like appropriate price for an item, and if someone tries to trade it for like too much higher or way too much lower, like they would stop, they wouldn't allow it? Because I feel like that wouldn't affect a majority of gamers, so maybe it would work
I'm
and without
not
affecting
aware
the
of
gaming industry.
price fixing, if you know what I mean. I think there's a lot of skins gambling and those type of things, and people buy and sell. I mean, that's back to your principle. Will a person pay a whole lot for an item? Would that not be contrary to a free market? I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, but why would you want a free
So-
market in
so-
a game?
Now that pops in my head. So crypto, as I said, in Europe, has this 1,000 euro limit, $1,100 limit, where you can trade at anything, but from that limit, it's got to be reported that these transactions were above that. And in the banking system in the US, it's $10,000. Okay, so they may not be able to say this item cannot go higher than that, but they could have some system where they report large trades. But now we need to aggregate trades too. If I do 100 trades a day at just below that limit, $1,000, surely I do 100 trades, it's 100,000 for the day. They should report that because I actually traded 100,000 in that day. So maybe, but who do you report it to at the moment?
I guess the company itself, assuming the company is looking out for this kind of stuff.
Okay, so we're trying to make the company a bit of a watchdog as well. I don't think that's a bad thing. Many companies have compliance departments and that type of thing, but at the moment, I haven't seen the desire for them to do it on a large scale. They just will take a complaint, and that's about it. Am I right there? From those who play.
I would say, like, I mean, I've heard this recently that, you know, some companies might tolerate this whole system or even cheating, stuff like that.
For the money.
Because it increases their daily users, and that's going to maybe affect how their stock does or how much money they make.
I
So,
agree.
yeah.
They do. Many do.
And good game design makes it more fun too when you're playing with scammers.
Precisely. So there is a whole psychological aspect to this too. Why Gen Z? Why this? Well, if there's other things, we all want to be superheroes nowadays. We all want to be, Batman. Well, that's a bit old now, I suppose. That's my generation. But whatever the current superhero is, everyone wants superpowers and all these type of things. And it's particularly Gen Z. I don't know if it's because you live virtually a lot more than our generation. You've got companionship apps. 40% of the US Gen Z use a companionship app. Gives them dating and health advice and everything else and all that type of thing. And all these other type of aspects. So you all want to be superheroes in a way, and not all, I'm generalizing, but so this culture of living where you can fight and do wars and do whatever you want and have superpowers online, it kind of feeds into that from a dopamine point of view. But that's a different discussion, a different lecture, you know. But I do think there's something that the companies play into that.
We have a question from online.
Okay.
Question from online from Ahmed. What metrics should we track to know if a mitigation approach is actually working in the money laundering?
So meaning we have analytics in place, we're going through the data. If it's actually working, we can take a confidence level afterwards. But I don't know how we check if we exclude that account, if that was, unless the person complains afterwards to say, you've done it incorrectly, that my account was legitimate, that was me as a genuine person, and I'll prove it. I don't know how you would check if you've actually had excluded too many incorrect accounts. But I do think people do complain if they've had money in there and it's been frozen and it was legitimate. It's the illegitimate people who probably keep quiet. But So it's going to be a response from whoever's account you froze or kicked off the system. Does that make sense, Ahmed? Was it?
So I was wondering, like, during the whole layering part of it, like, have you found any evidence, or how do they keep track of what they're doing? I mean, I know it's not just something with online. Maybe there's tools and stuff, but even Al Capone needed an accountant, right?
Yes.
So are there tools that criminals are using that helps them do this, to keep track of like where this money?
You mean like an Excel spreadsheet? I don't know exactly, but I am aware that quite a lot exits through these illegal trading platforms. You can find them on Reddit, and the dark web quite easily. I am aware that quite a lot exits via crypto, because they've got cases about that. But how they keep track of it, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty interesting to actually find some evidence like that to kind of.
But if I give too many details, will the university not be unhappy that I'm actually giving a recipe on how to?
Oh yeah. No, I'm not asking for any playbook on how to launder, but it's just something that occurred to me.
But I do think we can combat it with AI and build a sophisticated tool because there's no ways that we can really expect each company to police themselves when they've got so many players. I mean, according to these stats, 3.6 billion people are playing games, okay? Maybe only a quarter are trading, but even so, that's a lot of people trading. So, and they're trading between games and different platforms and different accounts. We need something more than a human in the loop intervention. That's what I'm trying to suggest. Yeah. Okay. I saw a signal. Are we finished? Or we done? Is there another?
Yeah, I don't see any more questions. So just want to thank you very much, Dr. Flowerday. We really appreciate you being here.
Pleasure. I enjoyed it too. Thank you.